Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Notes and Quotes podcast. It's always super, super fun when I get to interview one of my friends, and I'm going to give you guys a little information about her because she's quite amazing. So, Chemitei Janet is an environmentalist and a slow fashion educator passionate about storytelling through writing and content creation. With extensive experience in environmental education and sustainable waste management, she has worked with organizations like Global Landscapes Forum, Planet One, and Greenpeace Africa to empower local youth through climate justice, restoration, and advocacy. Janet focuses on highlighting the impacts of waste and the fashion industry in Kenya, urging mindful clothing habits. She organizes visits to Dandora, Kenya's largest dump site, and Gikomba, a second-hand clothing market, to illustrate the consequences of overproduction and overconsumption in fashion. And an avid crochet enthusiast, Janet shares her craft on Instagram, so you can go check her out there, promoting a slow fashion lifestyle. Her background in textiles stems from her childhood growing up in a family of sheep owners and learning wool spinning and weaving from her mother and aunties. Committed to African storytelling and sustainable innovation, Janet supports local upcycling and recycling initiatives by connecting them with media networks. She serves as the Youth Council chairperson at Clean Up Kenya and the Africa Regional Coordinator at Threading Change. So she has an extensive bio. She's so experienced in the climate and fashion industry. So that's why I'm so, so excited to be able to talk with her today. So, hi, Chemite. How are you doing?
Hi, Naomi. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah,
Of
I'm really
course.
looking forward to the incredible conversation.
Yes, me too. Okay, so just for context for the audience who might not know how we know each other, I know we met in Dubai at COP28, which was it last year? It was last year, right?
Yeah, in December, yeah.
And I know that you were the one that saw me because I was just walking around COP. It was so funny because it was my first day that I was there and I was so lost in the evening and I was just walking around and you ran up to me and I can't remember what was it that you ran up to me about. I can't remember what it was.
Um, so you had this macrame bag, and it's the first thing that
Yes.
caught my eye because
Yeah.
I crochet, so I understand the craft, and I was like, oh, she looks so good as well. And I just wanted to like come say hi. And at first I was so shy, but I was chatting with a friend, and he was like, no, just go say hi. So I
Mhm.
ran up to you, and then we started talking, and then next thing you know, we are going to like find the metro together, and then
Yeah.
we like went to cafe, shared a meal, talked for so long, and then said goodbye.
I know, I remember now. That was crazy. It was so nice too. I'm actually shocked that you told me you were shy because I did not, it didn't seem like that at all, by the way. Like, not at all. Like, you seemed like the most confident person. Because I was freaking out. I was so shy there. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so nice.
Oh
I'm
my
so
god.
happy that you spoke to me because I was just
No, I
freaking
think
out that whole time.
if I met someone that I feel like they have a good vibe and they're welcoming, then I think
Mhm.
my shyness kind of goes away. So I am still a shy person,
Mm.
but around the right people, I'm fine.
Yeah, I actually am kind of the same. I can be very, very shy, but around the right people I definitely open up a bit more. Yeah. And actually when we
Mm.
met is when you told me all of the stuff that you do in sustainable fashion, that's kind of what inspired me to look into it a bit more because obviously I have some background in climate and everything, but it's a lot of it didn't really have to do with sustainable fashion. And I didn't really fully look into it until like I met you and I heard about all the stuff you do and you told me about all of the different channels that I should look at and stuff. And then I think I came with you to this panel discussion that it was a friend of yours or you were hosting it. I can't remember.
Oh no, I think a friend of mine was hosting it. So I was
Right.
just also attending as well, and I wanted you to come because you
Hmm.
mentioned that you are interested in like learning more about the fashion industry. So
Yeah.
yeah, so, like it was a nice place to kind of connect where we both come from.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so informative. I think I even still have pictures of their slides on my phone that I look at every now and then to see
Yeah.
like the different companies that I should look out for. Yeah. It was really cool. So that's also one of the reasons I wanted to have you on my podcast to just talk a little bit about sustainable fashion and how fashion and climate interlink. So as with all of these episodes, we kind of start off with a quote to just kind of ground the foundation for the conversation. So, do you want to share with us what your quote was today?
Yes. So my quote is we all wear clothes, so we have to give a hoot about our clothing choices and what that means to us and the planet. And the reason why I chose to say that is because when you talk to a lot of people, especially like whether they are in the environmental space or like just an everyday person, they would say that they don't really care about fashion, which is
Mm,
understandable. But fashion is more than, let's say, style. It's a lot more than that. Like there's a lot of people who are employed in the industry, the women and men who make our clothes, their rights, and then the impact of the fashion industry. And so even if you don't care about being stylish or anything, one thing that we all share is that you have to wear clothes, right? So you
right.
kind of have to care about where it comes from and where it ends up.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, the fashion industry is major. Of course, it's one of the biggest industries in the world because you're right, we all have to wear clothes. So we do, as you say, have to give a hoot about how fashion
Mm,
impacts our environment. But I think fashion industry has had such a major influence on the world just through what it is. Everybody wearing clothes, whether you're a style icon, whether you're modeling, whether you work in the fashion industry or you don't, or you just, throw on the first thing that you see in the morning and you go outside, you're still invested in the fashion industry. So it's a major, major, major industry. But with today and the big climate crisis and that major impact, how do you think those two issues intersect? How do you think fashion and climate are even connected?
I think I could start from speed because,
Hmm.
so number one, I think for quite a while we used to make clothes from like the natural plants that we grow, like cotton, and so you have to plant a seed and then it grows. And for things like cotton, for example, this process already like has an impact on the environment because of all the toxic chemicals that we are putting into the soil. And soil, we need healthy soils to like sustain life in like both human and all biodiversity. And then moving on to synthetic fibers. So right now, a lot of the clothes that we wear are made from plastic. So
Mm,
if you see like polyester, if you look at your clothing label and then see the fabric type, it could be polyester, nylon, acrylic. All this fabrics are made from oil, and I think most of us are aware of the impact that the fossil fuel industry has on the planet.
yeah.
And so those are just like two examples of how fashion impacts climate in terms of material sourcing. And then when materials get into the factories, that's where like they have to go through all those processes where the materials are like turned into like yarn that will be used to make the fabric and yarn that will be used to sew the products together. And all those things are labor intensive, water intensive. So we end up using a lot of resources and also emitting like a lot of carbon into the atmosphere. So all those
Right.
things, and now the materials have already been like sewn together and now they are clothes and then they have to be like transported from one destination to the next. So let's say if the clothes are made in like Vietnam, for example, and then they have to be now shipped all over the world to be sold, and all the emissions, and so all that processes again just contribute to the climate change.
Wow. That's that's so interesting. Like I was absolutely fascinated when you were talking about it because I mean, when we think about fashion and climate, I think been very publicized now that the fashion industry makes a huge impact on the climate crisis. But I think most people think of it in terms of like dumping and how many materials are made. And you see like the huge mounds of waste of just old clothes and stuff like that. And sometimes even new clothes that people just never wore. And I think that's what people think about when they think about fashion and climate. And that is a major issue, of course, but nobody really thinks
Mm,
about how it is impacted from, like you said, from the seed straight through to the entirety of the end of the process when it is actually clothes now, which is crazy because there's so many different avenues for when you have excessive carbon emissions and you just have soil degradation and all of the things that you mentioned. It's actually kind of insane. So is that one of the reasons you chose to just get into sustainable fashion and kind of spread that message a bit?
That's an interesting question, and I think before I answer how I got into it, you like mentioning the end of life of clothes, so
Mhm.
essentially where they end up in landfills. I think it's
Mhm.
becoming more like out there, and I think that's thanks to social media where everyone is like sharing
Yeah.
stories of what's really happening. And for example, here in Kenya, we are a global south country, so that means
Mhm.
that we receive a lot of second-hand products and fashion is one of them. And the clothes are not like necessarily just second hand, like in terms of someone wore it, let's say in the US and then donated it and then it ended up in Kenya. But most times it's excess new clothes that were not sold, so
Mm.
they're shipped into countries like mine and then they'll be sold again. And unfortunately, most of the clothes that do end up in countries like mine do not end up being sold, so they kind of have to be thrown away. So they end up like in the landfills or in the
Yeah.
rivers. And it could be because of so many reasons. And there are other clothes that come in and maybe they're stained or have tears or they're oversized and like maybe they don't like really have a market. So
Mhm.
there are upcyclers in the market that have found a way to upcycle this clothes into new products, and that means that there are offcuts. And we really don't have like a proper waste management system either in the market or most of the country. So a lot of this offcuts will be left like just laying around, and it's very easy to find yourself working on textiles when you are in the market. And there's a river that passes right next to it. So you'll
Mhm.
find that most of the clothes that have found their way either on the riverbank or into the river, and then of course they will be swept downstream and end up probably in the Indian Ocean.
Wow.
So how I got into it, so I started volunteering with Greenpeace Africa around 2017, and I was an environmental planning and management student, and I joined the school environmental club in my second year. So I kind of became a volunteer with Greenpeace. I think in my third, in my second or third year. So through my school's environmental club, I got to like attend like this like very many events. I met so many organizations, and then the more I indulged myself in Greenpeace Africa's events, I got like exposed to like all the different issues in the world.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, I was so much into single-use plastic pollution, and I was very active there. And I have always loved fashion since I was young, as far back as I remember. And at some point, I thought I would have like my own fashion house just because of
Mm.
also like it was just so interesting to me.
Yeah.
But then during that year, I was watching something and then I came across a film about the fashion industry, all the labor rights issues there. So from the time I watched that film, it kind of changed how I view fashion and how I want to be involved moving forward. And I think around that same time, the fashion revolution movement was really picking up
Mhm.
because they're focused around people and fashion and the environment as well. So that's just how I got into it, and I have never looked back ever since. Like I'm just always looking for people and organizations in this space
Mhm.
that think about the impact that the industry has on all of us.
Wow. That's so cool. No, because I I feel like we had similar journeys in the beginning where I got into climate and a little bit into fashion as well, not nearly as much as you did, but during school and cuz I was always interested in fashion as well. I mean, it's I know I kind of don't understand people who aren't because it's just so interesting. It's such an interesting field because it's not only what we wear every day, but it's just a way to express yourself. It's style. It's like it's everything. And then when you're interested also in your environment and you see the impacts, like you were saying, that you see in your country as well, and just all over in the global south especially, you kind of see that connection and you want to learn more about that connection, and then you get into that whole field of fashion and climate, and you're now actually making a difference. Because even with the stories that you were telling me about the textiles and the offcuts ending up in the rivers and also on the ground in the market and stuff, those videos that you post all the time on your Instagram and on your social media, I watch them all the time because it's just shocking to
Mm,
see. It's like, yeah, I watch them all the time because it's just like, it's so eye opening to see everything and just like see it really there, because people talk about the issues and you call out different companies, and you talk about fast fashion and these different things, but to really see it happening right in front of your face is something else. So, especially because the fashion industry, as we established, is major and has a huge impact on the world, do you think there are ways to make the fashion industry more sustainable so that we don't keep having this major impact on the environment?
I mean, first of all, we are we already have too much clothes
Yeah.
around. So ideally, for me, making fashion sustainable would be to just stop producing or at least reducing the amount of clothes that we produce. Because even if we say, I mean, I'm a huge fan of sustainable brands, like those brands that use alternative like materials.
Right.
There's a lot of innovation around, say, but banana fiber, pineapple fiber, and so many other things, and like using regenerative agriculture to grow cotton. But at, at the end of the day, like we're still producing new, and there's a lot of clothes that are there.
Hmm.
So for this big brand, because the problem is with the big fast fashion brands, I would
Yeah.
really hope to see that in the coming years that they reduce and then hopefully eventually stop and shift to more sustainable public sourcing sites. And just always keep the production levels at really low. Like,
Yeah.
and I really upload the number of brands that are now coming up, and instead of buying new fabric, they choose to upcycle what already exists, and it's a
Hmm.
really good market. And I know a number of brands like that in Kenya alone, and there's so many around the world, and that is really good. And I'm really hoping that new designers who are coming into the market look up to the small brands and say, I want to be like them. I think that would be a really good thing, and might show the big fast fashion brands that people are starting to think how they design all their clothes.
Yeah. That's actually a brilliant suggestion, because you're so right. There's just so much. I mean, if you look at everything, I actually, you talked about it earlier with all of the thrown away textiles and all of those things, the fabrics that are just there, and the clothes that are produced so much every single day in a way that we don't really need more clothes. We have clothes and we can either upcycle them, recycle them, or just use the textiles that weren't used in production of other clothes to just make the newer ones that we need. It's not necessary. It's really not necessary. And actually, that reminds me, those
Mm,
same small businesses and small sustainable brands that you were talking about, you should tell me some of them, because I want to link them for people to go check out, because I am always encouraging people to go either shop secondhand or to go to the smaller sustainable brands, because they're doing such great work. And I really love when people go support them, because I would just think that we need to see
mm,
so much more of that, especially nowadays. So
yeah.
I don't know why do you think it's so hard for people to transition to the sustainable way of fashion? Because it's just, I feel like people have been talking about this for a few years now. You yourself have been talking about this for so long. Why do you think it's so hard for people to make the transition?
Social media.
Yeah.
it's a,
Yeah.
it's a it's a it's a good thing, but then it's also not a good thing at the same time. And
Hmm.
I think now we are in an era where we are influenced by all these influencers, and we see how cool they look and like all this money that they're making off of this
Mhm.
fast fashion brand, and like that is so cool, and I want to be that person, and I want to travel for all the opportunities that this fashion brands are giving them.
Mhm.
And so let me give an example. I was on TikTok the other day, and I think this u- TikTok user, I don't know if she's an influencer or just um, a, an everyday TikTok user. And I think she like shared a TikTok about, I don't remember the exact words she used,
Mhm.
something along the lines of, if you're still buying from Shein, you need to grow up. It might be that or
Ah.
something close to that. And lots of videos came up trying to like put her down, like you shouldn't like
Yeah.
be saying this. So many people don't have money to buy other
Oh,
brands that
right.
they can only like buy Shein because it's really cheap. But then
Yeah.
that's just the problem because if you can buy from a brand like that, you can afford a, a second-hand item because it's really not as
So true.
expensive,
Yeah.
and you get really good stuff as well, which also comes from fast fashion. But now instead of constantly buying new and then you end up wearing it or not, and then donating it, and then it comes back, it goes to the global south countries. I think we really need to like take a step back and just think
Mhm.
about our consumption behavior and what influences it. Most times we really don't need new clothes at all. Like you can buy like once or twice in a year. And even if you
Yeah.
want to buy new because that's what you want to buy, you can just always take your time and pick new clothes that you know you wear for more than 2 or more than 5 years, and look at the fabric type, look at how it's been made. Is it something that you see yourself wearing for a long time? And just spend your money wisely, because if you're an online buyer, you definitely can afford to buy more quality stuff, because even if you say
Mhm.
it's cheap, you end up buying like 5 or 6 items for God knows how much, but then the total amount will sum up to what you would buy like in a second-hand shop or even in a sustainable brand. It's just that we're using cheap as an
Mhm.
excuse
Mhm.
and accessibility. But yeah, and I think it's just that believing that fast fashion is better and that you get really good quality clothes, but it's really not good quality. I mean, trust me, I go to the market a lot, and I just wonder, people who say that Shein, for example, has really good quality. Like, I
It
don't know,
doesn't.
people know what quality means. No,
No.
no,
It
not at
really
all.
they
So yeah,
definitely
so
don't.
we need exactly, and I like that there are a new group of influencers coming up who are more mindful of what they buy, who they work with. I feel like we should take some time and give them a chance, listen to them, see what they're doing. I know the argument that comes in this case is that people say that they can't really afford sustainable brands,
Mhm.
but second hand is there for a reason. So that is a good option. There's this thing we like to say here in Kenya: Google is your friend. And some people find it offensive, but if you want to find out more information about the industry, for example, and maybe why you should choose certain types of shopping, like there's so many information about that, and then from there you can get information and decide for yourself which path do you want to follow. Do you want to have enough money to buy from a sustainable brand, or do you just want to buy second hand, or do you want to buy new but with an informed mind, where you buy because you want to wear it for a long time and you know exactly what type of fabric you should be choosing. Yeah.
Mhm. I feel like you just opened my eyes to how accessible slow fashion is, because there's so many times I've talked about the idea of slow fashion with friends, just general public, and they all say the same thing that you were saying, that it's just not accessible, it's too expensive to shop from the smaller sustainable brands. It's really accessible to go shop on Shein and to shop at all the other fast fashion brands, and yeah, it's cheaper, but like you said, the labor rights are terrible. They don't have good labor conditions. And then the quality is just not there at all, and it will last for like maybe a year, a couple months. And then right down the street is a secondhand shop, a charity shop, which the charity shops, for example, in England, charity shops are a huge thing here. I mean, they're amazing. They're all over the place, and they also every time you buy stuff, it gives back to a certain charity, and it's all secondhand stuff. There's actually one that's right below me, and I go to it all of the time
Oh,
because yeah, it's so accessible because the stuff is so cheap, and then the clothing quality is amazing because it's people giving away stuff that might have been expensive at one time, but now it's secondhand, so you can just go get the stuff and it's so accessible. It's so much better for the planet. And then even in your own time, even if you don't have money to go shopping for clothes, there's ways that you can up updo your fashion and your closet and stuff like that by just going and seeing if you have secondhand stuff from your own community. Because I can even tell you that there's so many times where I've walked outside and people have liked my outfit and I feel almost bad because they would ask me where clothes are from and I'm like, "Oh, this necklace is from my mom. This was hers when she was younger. This is my friends because they were giving away their clothes." So it's like I can't really suggest
no,
things
listen.
to you.
No.
Hmm?
That's the best answer, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I think we have this mindset where we buy brands instead of buying clothes. When you buy a
Yes.
brand, you're like enriching like the CEO, who in most cases is a man
Mhm.
and a white man in this case. So it doesn't like
Yeah.
really go back to the people who made those clothes.
Mhm.
And also, one other way is to buy clothes instead of just looking at a brand, because brands you will find even the brands that you don't expect to find, say, in a landfill or being in secondhand piles.
Yeah.
I last got when I was in the market, like I think 2 months ago. I came across a
Mhm.
reformation top, and I was so surprised. I was like, this is this is
It's
interesting.
like,
It's a sustainable fashion brand. But it's linen, which is good because
mhm.
it's a different type. It's far from fast fashion material type. Also, one thing that most people don't realize is that a lot of we buy a lot of synthetic fiber clothing. They
Mhm.
were made to wear off after a few wears and a few washes. So that's why you have to
Yeah.
like keep on buying new clothes like all the time. So just choose better quality clothes that are made from things like organic cotton or linen. There's so many other options. In Kenya, for example, and I think most global south countries, you can be able to access tailor-made clothes. So
Mhm.
if you want something new and you don't want to buy it, you can always like buy your own fabric. In Kenya, we call it kitenge, or I think the
Mhm.
most familiar term is Ankara from Ghana. And then you can have that like tailor made to what you want. Which I think is what we used to do a lot. When I was growing up, we would have tailor made clothes more. I think it was more common then than it is now, but it's still being
Mhm.
done. And I really like it when if someone asks me when I'm what I'm wearing and I'm like, oh no, it is my mom's. Like it's such a good
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, I absolutely agree because it's also just a nice experience. So because sometimes I mean, if you're just shopping for fast fashion like online, you're not having that connective experience as you would have if you're, you know, sharing clothes with your mom or your sister or your friend. Maybe it doesn't fit them anymore, maybe they don't like it anymore and they ask you, "Oh, do you want it?" And it's just like it gets a second life. And it's so nice. It's almost more sentimental than just buying a style of clothing from a fast fashion brand that's in season now and then later on you no longer like it
yeah,
or it just doesn't last anymore or something. It's just nicer, I think. So
that's true.
because of that, would you say that the responsibility to shift to slow fashion is more so on the consumer or it's more so on the fashion industry itself? Like, do you think that the consumer, us, just the people wearing the clothes every day, buying the clothes, have more of the responsibility to transform the fashion industry to be more sustainable? Or do you think that it's the fashion industry itself to take the leap to becoming more sustainable and using more slow fashion tactics?
I think most when you ask a brand whether or not shifting to being more sustainable or at least reducing their production, they would
Hmm.
often say that there's market demand. But there's
Yeah,
market demand because they make it so
that's
you
so
know.
true.
So yeah, so I would say a big chunk of the responsibility is on the brands and the companies. And then, of course, as people, we actually have power and influence. So if we just come together one day and we're like, okay, we're not going to buy from this brands anymore because they don't support people and planet, that would
Mm-hmm.
really make a huge difference. And this brands and companies will start shifting and be like, okay, people want this, so we have to think about shifting.
Yeah.
So I think there's that uh, they kind of feed off of each other. So
Yeah, it's like a balance.
hopefully, I'm really hoping that more people will support a more mindful fashion industry, and this will force the brands to change.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's definitely comes down to a balance. That's really true because the individuals, like you said, have a major influence. I've seen that. I think we've all seen that. Anybody in the climate sphere, actually anybody really can see the influence that not only activists have, but just individuals who change their choices and who change the industries by not supporting their bad habits anymore. We've seen different industries become canceled and then they had to either change or they just stopped the bad practices that they were continuing, or you see people
Mm,
just shifting to more sustainable practices and then more sustainable practices becoming in demand, as they say, and now we
mm,
have the shift towards more slow fashion. I don't think that we are where we're supposed to be yet in terms of advancing slow fashion. I think that a lot more probably still needs to be done. I'm
mm.
not sure if you agree as well. um, but
Yeah,
I think
I,
that we
I,
are,
I, I
yeah, because I think it's definitely something that is absolutely necessary when we talk about creating a more sustainable world.
say that you have a really good
Hmm.
style. Like I think also
Do
part of
I?
the reason why I yeah, part of the reason why I went to like say hi was, I mean, number one, the bag, and please keep it for a very long time.
I
And
still have it,
if for
girl.
any reason, yeah, for any reason you want to give it away, please, I am the first person on that list.
You're on my
And
list for
then,
sure.
yeah, and then the entire time, I think we saw each other. I think the first day that we met, and then
Hmm.
like one more time before you had to leave because I think you left earlier.
Hmm.
And each time I saw you, like you're always just dressed really nicely. Like it's just really so put together, and like you wouldn't see many people wearing the way you do. Although it's accessible to everyone. It's what
Yeah.
you see anyone else wearing, but just the way you wear it and styling is
Thank
so nice.
you. That means so much. No, because as I
Yeah.
said, I'm so interested in fashion. I love fashion. And but I also want to be smart with my fashion. Like I can't be destroying the planet and still interested in fashion. It would just destroy me to my core. So I
Mm.
every single thing that you see me wearing is either secondhand or it's locally sourced
Oh.
or is like from my mom.
Oh.
So yeah, most of everything. I think there's probably a couple items because I am not perfect at all. But before I got into the climate industry, I didn't know about fast fashion or brands destroying the planet and that kind of thing. So I was doing the same thing, like shopping online. I don't think I went to SHEIN because SHEIN wasn't popular at the time when I was partaking in fast fashion. It was another one called Zaful, which is basically the same thing as SHEIN, and I used to get a lot of clothes from there. And it did just kind of destroy in a couple months. But the other pieces that I had gotten from before I got into climate industry and I knew about slow fashion, I still have. I still have so many of those clothes that I continue to wear as much as I can. So even if I would say to like other people, even if you are now learning about slow fashion and trying to improve your practices, and you feel like almost guilty for supporting brands that aren't, sustainable, just try and keep the same clothes that you have and wear them for as long as you can or give them to other people that you think might need them or want them, because it doesn't make sense to do the opposite and then throw out those clothes and go buy some secondhand clothes because it's just perpetuating the problem even further. So, yeah, but that's so nice that you think I have nice
Yeah.
style. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
you're welcome. It's actually really nice that you've mentioned a few
Yeah.
ways that people can be more like slow fashion focused. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw it, but there's this trend, under consumption core,
Yeah,
where
I saw
people are
that.
like sharing, yeah. So people are sharing how they live sustainably. And I think
Mhm.
there was one point where some influencers on TikTok were getting rid of their stuff, because they thought that showing that you consume less means throwing out some of the excess stuff that you have, but it's really just about, even if you already have them, as you have mentioned, that's okay. Just
Mhm.
find ways to reuse them or use them for as long as you can. And so if
Yeah.
they no longer serve you, there's so many ways that you can give them away instead of like throwing them into the trash, or just, you know, leaving them anyhow. Here in Kenya, for example, there's a company called Africa Connect Textiles, and they they go to households in Nairobi, and they ask if you have clothes, or shoes, or bags, or anything in the fashion and apparel industry. If you have them and you no
Mhm.
longer want them, so instead of you throwing them out and then them ending in the landfill, you donate to them, and then they use that
Mhm.
to make products like bags and bags
Wow.
and so
I
many
love
other
that.
things. And that's a really good initiative. And anyone who's getting into like the slow lifestyle space, yeah, just make sure that you use whatever you have for as long as you can. Please do not say you decluttering, and then you feel like want to throw things out and like start buying. Because if you say you're throwing out your fast fashion items and then buy like maybe second hand or from a sustainable brand, you're still a part of the problem, because you're still
Yeah.
kind of showing that it's okay to consume excessively, and you feel like, oh, I am doing a good thing because I'm doing it. Yeah, no, that's not how good intentions work at all.
Mhm.
And we should stop doing that. And there's a lot of this event called clothing club, where basically it's a gathering where you come together, and then you all bring clothes that you don't want to wear anymore for so many reasons. It could be they don't fit you, it's not your style anymore, but it's clothes that you know you can still wear, you want to give them to the next person. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of that, and people who maybe donating them into like charity shops, because charity shops clothes do end up in our market. And I feel clothing shops are more intentional, and someone can like get like try it on and be like, oh, I love it, and then they take it home and might wear it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And no one is perfect. It doesn't mean if you live a slow lifestyle that I mean, I also struggle with not
Yeah.
buying too much stuff, but I only buy secondhand. And sometimes when I go into the market and I like so many good things, and then they're so cheap, so of course I'm
I
usually
know. Yeah,
tempted
it's
to
so
like buy
tempting.
things. But I know I will probably not wear them. Or I'm like, oh, I'll
Mhm.
buy it, and then if it doesn't fit me, I'll give it to my sister. It's so dangerous. But yeah, I think everyone struggles with the same thing. So it's just you understanding yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself. Do not compare yourself with other people. Yeah, just know there's a different process to how everyone works, and we all do things differently. So if someone doesn't live up to expectations, that's fine. You know,
Mhm.
we live like everyone is entitled to their own opinion. This is fine.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I agree. I think honestly it just comes down to educating yourself, but also just doing the best that you can. Because like you said, nobody's perfect. Just do the best you can. Hopefully with the skills that you shared with us today as well, because they were so valuable. I feel like I learned things too, actually, which I feel like I learn things every single time I end up talking to you or seeing your videos or stuff like that. So thank you so
Oh,
much, Chemite.
that makes me
Okay.
happy. Yeah.
Of course. I'm so happy that you chose to come on the podcast today. So, okay, so with that, I think that's all we have for today, everybody. If you want, please do go check out Chemitei's socials. I usually look at her Instagram because they're very, very informative and have so many different things that you can learn from. but is there any other places that you want them to check out, like to see your work or to support you in any way?
Well, I think Instagram is my favorite platform, of course. But I'm on Facebook and TikTok with the same name,
Hmm.
Chemitei Janet. So you'll find me a lot of my work there. And sometimes I work with initiatives that support West Africans, especially in Kenya. So if you would like to support them in whichever way, if it's sharing what they do or donating, I'm not doing that now, but if it's something that you're interested in doing and would like to learn more, we can always have a chat and see how we can support the work that West Speakers do, because they really do like great work in terms of creating a better waste management system in the country and all over the world, of course. So yeah, that's basically.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's all we have. So if you want to do to support Chamite, please check out the socials and the websites that she had mentioned. And then if you want some more of this podcast, you can check us out on Instagram at the Notes and Quotes Pod. Same handle on TikTok at the Notes and Quotes Pod, and on YouTube at the Notes and Quotes Podcast. And then if you want some more of me and the work that I do as well in climate and health, then a little bit in climate and fashion, but I would definitely go check out Chamite for climate and fashion a bit more. My Instagram is Naomi A Cambridge, and please also share as much feedback as you guys want. We always love to hear feedback on the podcast, and if you have any other topic suggestions, you can just DM us on Instagram or say something in the comments, and we will check them out and take some suggestions. So with that, that's all we have. So have a good day or night or afternoon wherever you are. And bye, guys.